the last week of the year of sale.
With a champ who's on a winning streak.
The boys catch.
Tonight, he's back in the hot seat, risking a prize package worth $40,000.
You got it, Sandra. Well played. Good game tonight. Got some hot talent around.
And the competition's tough.
Bad start for the champ.
Sale of the Century on 9.
In the great tradition of Agatha Christie comes the most gripping whodunit of the year, Grim Pickings. The family have gathered to pick the apples, to pick on each other. But this year one would die. The pickings grim indeed. A talented Australian cast includes Lorraine Bailey, Lily Clark, Max Cullen, Catherine Wilkin, and Neil Fitzpatrick. From the acclaimed bestseller by Jennifer Rowe comes a classic murder mystery not to be missed. Premiering Wednesday, 8:30 on 9, Grim Pickings.
In just 3 days, the world has seen the city transformed from one divided by a cruel wall to one where its citizens from both east and west may come and go as they please. Freedoms taken for granted for so long in the west have caused a culture shock in the east. And the process continues. As I speak to you, new crossings are opened across the border. Here at the Brandenburg Gate, where the party's been going on for 2 days, the atmosphere has toned down a little. You can see across the wall into the east, down what was Unter den Lindenstrasse before 1939, the Whitehall, effectively, of East Germany. The wall running across there, the multicoloured slogans and motifs that people over the last 28 years have added. And then looking from the wall down into West Berlin, this is June the 17th Strasse, named after the 1953 uprising, but the young people here already have renamed it November the 9th Strasse. That's the memorial there you can see in the haze from the Napoleonic Wars at the end of the 19th century. There is a party going on here. The border guards have come down off the wall from where you're looking at it, but to the left and the right, they're still up there on the wall, just keeping out of shot, I think, of the cameras. Well, today in this special programme, we'll be reflecting these momentous events, what they mean for Berlin, for the two Germanys, for Europe, and for the world. And it has been truly momentous, a world-shattering story, not only for its significance, but also for the pace at which it happened, the speed at which it unfolded. Throughout October, thousands in East Germany had demonstrated, demanding reform. The government promised talks on all questions. October 18th saw Herr Honecker replaced by Herr Krenz, and others from the old guard stepped down. The final phase began on November the 4th, with 1 million demonstrators on the streets of East Berlin. Next day, the government eased the travel laws, but November the 6th saw mass demonstrations across East Germany. On the 7th, the government resigned. On the 8th, the Politburo went too. The moderate Hans Modrow was proposed as Prime Minister. On November the 9th, the new government opened East Germany's border, and the people stormed the wall. By November the 10th, thousands had come to the west. New crossing points were created. The wall was finally breached. This Sunday morning in Berlin has been like no other. As always, people from the east and west came to the crossing points, but this time they were free to go over and to come back again. They went to church, as many of them often do, but this time they could go to the same service. They went to the parks for a walk, this time together. The wall is still there, but it's been breached. Trevor McDonald reports now on just what that means for the people of East and West Berlin.
When the pace of change has gathered momentum here, it's done so with bewildering speed and passion. It's 4 o'clock, long before daybreak, on a bitterly cold Berlin morning. But already East German border guards are dismantling part of the wall at Potsdamer Platz, site of Hitler's bunker. Watching from West Berlin as they've done for several hours, the crowd shout ecstatically, "We're coming." But it was from the east that they came 4 hours later, streaming first into no man's land, still in East German control. In the middle of this populist surge, yet another moment of history. The mayor of East Berlin, Herr Krack, sets off to meet his opposite number in the west. A simple affair, but in these momentous times, a meeting of profound significance. Touchingly, before they finally left the east, the crowds were given a lecture by a border guard on the new discipline required in these heady times.
Eine neue Disziplin!
The advice was taken in good spirit, and the moment of actual crossing into the west had come. Some were taking with them souvenirs of the part of the wall which came down today. By 10 this morning, West Berliners gathered at the church which was bombed during World War II and which has itself become a memorial and a symbol of the city's hope. West Berlin's mayor, fresh from his meeting with his East Berlin counterpart, was there. In the grounds of the church, Berlin's newest visitors were being given coffee and cakes. Once in the 17th century, Berlin actively encouraged immigration. Times have changed, but the warmth of the people here has remained. Again, today, Sunday, banks remained open for the sole purpose of giving East Berliners the 100 marks or £30 they're all entitled to. For 3 days, the city has become crisscrossed by queues for banks. This morning in Berlin, coming as it does after the remarkable events of the last week, has given this resilient city, people and politicians a chance to reflect on the future. They see what has happened here as an unmistakable sign that the Eastern Bloc dictatorships across their borders are in retreat. The very foundations of post-war Europe have been shaken. Berliners want to know what the new political vision will be. For the people crossing Checkpoint Charlie this morning, there were perhaps no thoughts of political future. But they must have reflected how after only 2 days, this crossing is becoming routine. Before lunch today, the Berlin Philharmonic, one of the world's great orchestras, and conducted by Daniel Barenboim, gave a special concert to celebrate the crossing of the people from East Germany. For them, there were free tickets, and music which more so than any political rhetoric speaks eloquently of German aspirations.
The new Mazda 121. It's full of surprises.
At Mekong, no worry about Yaki MSG. We never use it.
All the delicious taste of Mekong home cooking comes from first-class ingredients, exquisitely cooked in the Cambodian style. We add special spices and sauces which give it a delightful flavour you'll love, but no MSG. Eating at Mekong's not expensive. Any 3 dishes on a bed of white or brown rice, only $4.50. Mekong Home Cooking Restaurants, George Street Haymarket, Oxford Street Bondi Junction and Anzac Parade, Kingsford.
No MSG for Mekong.
There comes a time in everyone's life when they're no longer prepared to compromise. That's when it's time to come to Brentnell Homes. When you move into your new Brentnell home, you'll know this is the last move you'll ever need to make. You'll know you've arrived. Choose from 50 spectacular designs, or our architect will custom design your home. With Brentnell, have it built by a registered builder or owner build it yourself. There's no place like a Brentnell home.
At last, there's a garlic press that with a simple twist of the wrist effortlessly delivers fresh crushed garlic Or you can load it with ginger, onions, peppers, or enough fresh cloves to last for days, maybe weeks. And best of all, you can simply leave it in the fridge until you need garlic again. You could call it the ultimate garlic press. We call it the garlic machine. Now, you never need be pressed for fresh garlic again.
We all want to own the best home we can. ANZ will lend money for land or a home, and money to improve or extend when the time comes. All at the current home loan interest rate. Even if you're not an ANZ customer. Whether it's your first home or you're after bigger and better things, an ANZ home loan will help you get there.
Here at the Brandenburg Gate, we've seen the focus of the celebrations over the last 3 days, and there have been some truly extraordinary moments when the youngsters first dared to scale the wall, when the East German border guards came across and pushed them off again, and when the people began the process of chipping away at the wall which has divided their city for 28 years. Well, the party's still going on, and David Chater is down there amongst the people. David, what's the atmosphere like with you?
Well, all morning the people have been streaming past the wall. They've come to stare and take part in this moment of history. They've been drinking champagne, throwing flowers at the guards. I've got part of that crowd with me now. Could you tell me, Erica, exactly what this has been like for you?
Oh, I think it's the most wonderful day of my life, because I was 9 years old when they built this wall, and I couldn't believe that they would I don't know the word. Demolished it, yes. And so it's wonderful. Everyone is coming here looking through the wall, and they're standing there taking flowers, and we can speak with them. And I couldn't believe that it's true, really.
Thanks very much. Angelica, you've come here too to take part in this. Exactly what's your reaction to it all?
Well, it's very touching to me, and it's just fantastic. I mean, it's just the most amazing thing which happened to Germany in the last 40 years, actually. So, I mean, it's just wonderful that we don't need this wall anymore, and it's over now.
I also have with me Stephanie. Stephanie, you've been here about 6 months. What do you make of it all?
Yes, it's great. It's unbelievable for me, you know. I watch television 2 days long, and it's great.
Okay, thanks. Tono, what about you?
You know, you must imagine I was just sitting for 2 days in front of radio and television, and then I saw that it's such a great moment for all Germans and all for the whole world. But I think you just have to go there and take part in, and the most amazing thing...
Okay, thanks. That's all we've got time for. Thanks very much indeed, and now back to Alistair.
Thank you, David. For many in the East, the West must have appeared like an Aladdin's cave of goodies. Shops full to bursting, political freedoms taken for granted, the liberty to say what you want and go where you want. Well, that's what the people in the East had heard about, but now they've had the chance to find out what it's really like for themselves. John Suchet has been with a family from the East who were amazed at the pace with which the city opened up and became free. He's been with them, finding out what the West is like.
Their train from Rostock had left at 3 in the morning, more than 1,000 people crammed onto it. For 5.5 hours, Simone Krauleides sat on the toilet seat, her daughter Nancy on her lap, her husband Roberto at her feet. Now they were in East Berlin to join thousands more, waiting patiently at the border to cross for a day into the West. Queuing is a daily fact of life for East Europeans, whether for meat, fruit or bread. So they're used to it.
What strikes you first about these people is how relaxed they are. There's no sense of excitement, there's no sense of rush, because these people are not leaving home. They'll be back here in East Berlin tonight. They're having a day out. They want a taste of a life that they've read about in the newspapers and that they've seen on television, but that they've never experienced for themselves.
Through Checkpoint Charlie, and the Krauleides step onto Western soil for the first time in their lives. Where now? Another queue to a bank to collect the 200 Deutschmark welcome money from the West German government. That's £60 to add to the £10 they brought with them. To the Kurfürstendamm now, West Berlin's famous shopping street that Simone has seen on TV, read about in the papers, and dreamed of. and dream is all she can do. There's practically nothing in this women's shop for under £100. And amid the sophistication, the Kraulides feel out of place in their bomber jackets. Across the street, trainers from £50 up. Difficult for a man who earns around £35 a week. The Kraulides are both bakers. They have 2 children, one at school today. They live in a 2-room flat with no bath. Jointly, they earn around £300 a month. Half that goes on rent, electricity and food.
Können Sie dafür bezahlen? Nein.
With around £40 a week for clothes for the whole family, there can be no new trainers. They have no car and no phone, 10-year waiting lists for both. They have a black and white TV and are saving up for a family holiday in Poland. Certainly jeans at £30 are out of the question. Fortunately, they're too full round the hips, and anyway, in East Germany, jeans are just £2. The Kraulides have found a less expensive shop for a present for their 7-year-old son. But sweatshirts at £5.50 are still too much. Braces at £1.50, though, that's perfect. In fact, they'll buy him 2.
It's extraordinary. This is probably the busiest shopping day West Berlin has ever known. Just look at the crowds down there. The irony of it is, most of them are East Berliners, and they simply aren't buying anything.
For East Germans, West Berlin is a city to look at and dream.
Wissen Sie, das hat Sie erstaunt?
Were Roberto and Simone astounded, I asked them over dinner, that their country was breaking free? No, they replied, except for the sheer speed of it. Would they like to come and live in the West? No, the people aren't as friendly here as in the East, and how on earth would they find a job? They're happy for life in the West to remain a dream.
Law and order like you've never seen it before.
Give me a car! That man is a jerk!
John Candy is Armed and Dangerous, tonight, 8:30 on 9.
There's a very clever company behind this stylish Lamicore reception desk. And this craftwood veneered boardroom table. Laminex. There's no limit to what you can create.
Where do you find me to get fit and stay fit? City Gym, the body sculptors.
City Gym in Crown Street, just off William Street's only a short walk from the city centre. Your training times can be as long as you want, and you can finish off with a steam sauna, all at a casual rate of only $7 a session. 1 to 12-month memberships give even lower session rates. This is budget price fitness that gives you a better than average body.
I'll keep you in trim at City Gym, the body sculptors.
7 days a week.
There comes a time in everyone's life when they're no longer prepared to compromise. That's when it's time to come to Brentnell Homes. When you move into your new Brentnell home, you'll know this is the last move you'll ever need to make. You'll know you've arrived. Choose from 50 spectacular designs, or our architect will custom design your home. With Brentnell, have it built by a registered builder or owner build it yourself. There's no place like a Brentnell home.
The car on the left did not have a Croc Key security system. We at Autolock have been quietly protecting cars for over 3 years with a 100% success rate. If you're tired of noisy, ineffective alarms, then at only $695 fitted, the Croc Key is the only sensible alternative. We offer a money-back guarantee, free mobile fitting service and easy payment plan to approved applicants. No noise, no worries. Fit a Croc Key by Autolock. No car is safe without it.
This small black box is an amazing energy management system developed by Alcatel STC.
You mean that came from Australia?
It's currently helping to conserve energy in Baltimore and earning Australia export income at the same time. Likewise, the optical fibre systems developed by Alcatel STC to link towns and cities in Australia are also winning orders in countries with similar harsh terrain and climate, like Pakistan. And back here, Alcatel STC is creating a new industry in Australia by manufacturing undersea communication cable systems for world markets. Alcatel STC is Australia's largest telecommunication company because we know how to compete.
The East German leader, Herr Krinz, is gambling that by opening the wall, he'll be able to allow his people to come over, but at the same time retain his skilled workforce. Content in the belief that they can come and go as they want, then they can go back home as well as make the visit to the West. That way he pleases his people and keeps the skilled workforce. As David Chater reports, the risk of a brain drain is serious. He's been looking at it through the eyes of a Leipzig doctor.
As the people of East Germany began their walk to freedom across the Berlin Wall, the people of Leipzig were gathering in their thousands in the streets of their city once again. Unaware of the news that had just broken, they were marching in memory of the Jewish victims of the Nazis and a night of terror known as Kristallnacht. Among the people who came to lay flowers and place candles at the Jewish memorial was a man who knows all too well the daily cost of East Germany's newly won freedoms. Dr. Herbert Strichtrod is an active member of the New Forum opposition and director of one of Leipzig's clinics for the old and the disabled. All the hospitals here are having to cope with chronic staff shortages as doctors and nurses join the exodus to the West. It's the patients who are suffering as wards are closed, operations cancelled. Many of these women are now on their own here. Their children and grandchildren have gone to the West. They can only watch the exodus from their hospital beds, knowing that they alone must stay here. This old lady could hardly speak for emotion when I asked her about the opening of the Berlin Wall. It's caused us such pain, she said. The director of the clinic says many hospitals are simply not coping. The staff that are left in the hospitals are having to take on 2 or 3 extra jobs, like cooking and cleaning, in an attempt to keep patient care going. It's a punishing routine.
I think we can accept certain things for the sake of freedom and reform, and that's a reason for me to stay.
The staff are working in hospitals which are hopelessly outdated. The heating system here consists of a boiler which has to be manned 24 hours a day and constantly fed with coal. It's a job nobody wants. This square in the center of Leipzig, Karl-Marx-Platz, is where the mass movement for reform first found its voice. None of them knew when it started how powerful that voice would prove to be. In the city's famous concert hall next to the square, it was heard again. The clinic's director joined hundreds of other workers in the health sector to air grievances and frustration with the officials who are running the service. Here, a handicapped teenager complains bitterly about the lack of facilities for the disabled in Leipzig. A nurse describes how in her hospital there's no hygienic method for disposal of used bandages. The applause is loud and the authorities at last seem to be listening.
So Berlin is now an open city, and yet the 2 Germanys, East and West, remain individual sovereign states. So have we seen the beginning of a process that will lead inevitably to a reunited Germany? Or does the turmoil end here, where it began, at the wall? John Snow looks at the 2 Germanys, their bitter past and their uncertain future.
Asking the question, what happens now the wall is open, is something the strategists never posed, because none of the experts ever believed things would work out this way. But by tracing the stepping stones by which East and West reached this point, and by talking to the Germans themselves, it is possible to piece together something of what the future may look like. East Germany is a country strewn with the paraphernalia of earlier European arrangements, each in its own way a building block towards today's developing drama. Like many other cities here, Dresden still wears the scars of the Second World War. But under Soviet occupation at war's end, East Germany had none of the West's martial aid with which the people could rebuild. The Soviets gave the East Germans institutions, structures, and a Stalinist philosophy from above, but little material help. So that whilst their industry became some of the best in the Eastern Bloc, it was never a match for West Germany's. In Schönwalde, a typical East German village about 100 miles from Berlin, we found the people quietly proud of the country they have built, but weighed down by the atrophied communist apparatus beneath which they have labored to maintain it. This man had been on demonstrations with New Forum. The old farmer resented the fact that every 3 months or so, several hundred Soviet tanks moved through his village to the Eastern Front, scuffing the curbstone and the cobbles as they go. But what we did not find in anyone we spoke to was any desire for a reunited Germany. This woman wanted the freedoms her generation had lost out on, and wanted the potential to be realized in her own country, as a country. Along the route back across East Germany into East Berlin, construction teams are at work on the kind of road infrastructure that West Germany completed in the 1960s. There is a widespread understanding in this country, because of the economic imbalances, that German reunification would anyway be on the West's terms, condemning those in the East to becoming the tools of a West German desire to expand their economic strength in Europe still further. In West Berlin, as East Germans queued at banks for the handouts of West German marks, again we found few who wanted a united Germany and no one who wanted to stay. All wanted better relations across the border, relations that would eventually reduce the border to that between any two other nations in Europe. They said here that the several 100,000 who'd fled to the West before these days were not representative of the reform movement. So if the message from the Berlin Wall is that peace has broken out both sides of it, how do history's stepping stones guide us to the implications for wider superpower peace? It was only 3 years ago that Reykjavik's Hofti House played host to what has since proved one of history's most dramatic summits. For it was here that Mr. Gorbachev spelt out his dream of a nuclear-free world, and here that then-President Reagan nearly accepted it. But the West ruled it out, not least because they said it was impossible without the tearing down of the Berlin Wall. Now suddenly the wall is many times breached. It was Mr. Gorbachev who refused to allow his troops to help defend it. The concern remains Mr. Gorbachev's own future and what must now be running through the minds of the Soviet forces he has confined to their barracks across Europe. Finally, the Gorbachev dream of a common European home, discounted in the West because no home divided by an iron curtain could be common. But November 1989 marked the moment the dream became the dawning of a reality.
Someone's in the kitchen with Lisa.
No way.
It's Kissin' Cousins.
I'm not depressed.
Living with Lisa Patrick tonight, 8 o'clock, right after Cosby on 9.
It's now on Keith Lord pre-Christmas sale. Our showrooms are bursting with bargains. Individually styled accessories from around the world. We import direct, so we pass the savings on to you. Choose from our magnificent September Woods collection that is produced exclusively by hand. Many of these fine pieces are precise replicas of original antiques. Bring the charm of yesteryear to your home with designs that create more than ever a look of an era long gone. Keith Lord, making decorating a delight.
Oi, sunscreen?
Do I have to?
Stops your skin getting sick.
How can skin get sick?
If you get sunburned, it gets sick.
Oh, come on then.
I haven't finished my All Brand. Just like you need sunscreen to keep you healthy on the outside, I need All Brand to keep me healthy on the inside.
Oops.
Be careful.
Now, how are you going to protect yourself?
As the highest fiber cereal, Kellogg's All Brand keeps you healthy on the inside.
Reebok yet again has achieved a breakthrough. The Reebok Energy Return System. Unique high-trail tubes give maximum stability and cushioning, then activate virtually at liftoff with every step, returning the energy of impact, just like highly tuned springs. The Energy Return System by Reebok. You're wasting your energy choosing any other shoe.
Save up to 60% on beautiful gifts at Copper Art. Chevelle mirrors were $139, now $99. Fashion mirrors, not $39, only $24.95. This clock was $39.95, now $22.95. Hurry, these bargains won't last.
Now I can enjoy all the goodness of yogurt, but with only half the calories. Only Danone can come up with such a bright idea.
New Danone Diet Light with NutraSweet. Light on fat, light on calories.
Right on taste.
New from Danone.
Tuesday, Jessica's on her most difficult case yet at the circus in a special 2-hour episode of Murder, She Wrote. Tuesday, 8:30 on 9.
The Today Show is proudly sponsored by Chandler's and Holeproof.
Good morning, I'm Terry Whittlesey. Welcome to Today.
Yes, good morning. I'm Elizabeth Hayes. It's Monday, November the 13th, and our top story this morning, the celebration of a nation of people separated by an artificial border. East Berliners poured into West Berlin over the weekend on a massive shopping spree. We'll have more on that.
And we'll be looking at golfer Peter Senior and how he's back in the money after using a most unusual putter. Now, it is very unusual, but it sure works.
And the Queensland National Party turned up the heat in the election campaign over the weekend with the release of its campaign commercial. Morality and the sins of the Southerners seemed high on the agenda.
Labor even plans to make homosexuality legal.
That's a floodgate the Nationals will never open.
3 years is all they need to drag Queensland down to the rest of Australia's level.
Don't give them the chance to wreck everything we've worked for.
And down here in the south, we're playing games, hobbies, in fact. There was a toy and hobby fair over the weekend, and the mind boggles at what Australians do to keep themselves amused. In fact, Liz will impart what she did over the weekend, which will fascinate you. Wait, that's later, but first, the news with Eric Walters.
Good morning, Terry. Liz, good morning, everyone. The Germanys, East and West, continue to celebrate an historic weekend of freedom. Despite serious questions about the future shape of Europe and the Warsaw Pact, the Berlin Wall this morning has 10 new holes in it, allowing thousands of East Germans to cross into West Berlin.
Slogans and the symbols of the past are being destroyed. A new main crossing point is opened in the heart of the city. At 8, needing only their passports, thousands of East Germans stream across. It was a day trip, but it was so much more.
It's wonderful.
Magnifique! Wunderbar!
Oh, I happy.
They even brought a bear to the wall. It's the city's symbol. It too went west. The Grota family was reunited today, 12 of them, 4 generations, across the wall for the first time.
It's open and they eat and they are happy.
A celebration symphony by the Berlin Philharmonic, free to East Germans. Others remember the dead of the war that left this city divided. Tonight, a rock concert and the end of a momentous week Berlin never wants to forget.
There's been no direct response from the federal government to predictions of a recession from a leading banker. The head of the National Australia Bank, Nobby Clark, says the government's tight monetary policy is going to have serious consequences.
It was very much a case of good news and bad news from the chief of the National Australia Bank. First, the good.
By the end of next year, we may have rates down at the short end of the market, perhaps as much as 5%.
But that fall in interest rates is going to be brought about by some bad news.
The economy is going to be flat by Christmas, and that the first 3 months of next year will probably have negative real growth. So technically, we'll be in a recessionary condition.
Prime Minister Hawke was also on television last night, an appearance on the Nine Network's 60 Minutes. Mr. Hawke indicated that Federal Treasurer Paul Keating now probably had a change of heart about his bitter personal attack on Liberal Party chieftain John Elliott.
Things. I think he feels that he might have handled it differently if he'd had his time again.
Mr. Keating flew to Tokyo overnight. As yet, we haven't had his version. Peter Harvey, Canberra.
There have been mixed reactions this morning to Queensland's ALP campaign advertisements featuring comedian Max Gillies. With the state election in less than 3 weeks, the Labor Party is accusing their opponents of mudslinging and gutter tactics.
Commissioned for the ALP, the advertisements feature Max Gillies impersonating former Premier Sir Joh Bjelke-Petersen. The ads also depict Premier Russell Cooper as a Joh clone.
We say trade unionists, communist. We say immoral. Look at Canberra, look at Melbourne, Adelaide, Cuba. Terrible things they do in those places, terrible things. Look at Hobart, look at Moscow.